The subject of this video is called Sogo Bujutsu. Sogo Bujutsu refers to martial traditions, Bujutsu, that are essentially composite or collections of skill sets. That is to say, each skill set is full of transferable skills. If you know how to strike one way, you know how to thrust another. So Sogo essentially means composite, or to bring subjects together, and Bujutsu is, of course, martial techniques. So we find this most commonly in classical Japanese martial arts as the modern ones. It's not quite the same as just performing karate with a sword in your hand, or practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a knife in your hand. That's not what we're looking at today. Today we're looking at something that's completely integrated from the beginning onward, or at the very least has passed several generations to integrate a new skill set into a tradition. So we'll jump right to it. Essentially, Sogo Bujutsu, most commonly, the core principle of a tradition is based around its unarmed fighting. Sometimes it begins with a sword or a staff, but most commonly it's their yawara, their jujutsu, their daho, kopujutsu, dakenho, various ways of moving and striking the body. Each one of those is its own system of biomechanics. It's like the difference between biotensegrity, Feldenkrais, and Newtonian movement. It's just different systems. Completely different systems in many cases. Some contradict others. Some break some rules of physics. And so, in any case, what happens with this is that you observe a single unarmed fighting technique, and you do it with a sword, you do it with a spear, you do it with naginata, you do it with rope, you do it... Now, it's not just as simple as doing, a karate punch, but you've got a spear or a staff in your hand. And we see this nowadays in Gendai Budo, in Karate Do, in Judo. People try and do their techniques with different weapons in different situations. That is crucial to practice, absolutely. I endorse this 100%. However, there's certain things that make it more effective than others. So, for example, in one tradition, their swordsmanship and their staff fighting might be similar enough that you can do one technique from one skill set with a tool from another skill set. The trick, though, is what unifies them. Is it the movement? Usually it is. However, also the particular tradition's way of holding a weapon. Do you hold a sword in a specific way? Do you hold a spear in a specific way? Do you hold a brush in a specific way? And if it links between the two, then there's probably a good chance that there's a high level of synergy between the two skill sets. And depending on how many traditions that particular skill set, or how many generations that particular skill set has been in the tradition, it might work better or worse. There might have to be some modifications. There might have to be the applications of foreign concepts. So essentially, what we're going to be looking at today is a particular technique that illustrates this beautifully. It's from a tradition called Kotoryu Kopujutsu. Kopujutsu is its system of movement where it relies on the skeletal structure to disrupt the enemy's skeletal structure. That is to say, their physical stability, their ability to hold a posture. And of course, through that posture, launch an effective attack. So, the technique we're looking at is called Hida. It can also be read as Tobi Uchi. In Hida's case, it means to strike swiftly. In Tobiuchi's case, it means to leap and strike. Right? So it's just different ways of reading the characters that imply different connotations for what it could mean. Those aren't set in stone. They really aren't. Sometimes the accompanying densho or transmissive documents explain the details. They're not always, and in my experience, not usually. However, I've got access to very few full traditions writings, so those are a little bit hard to get a hold of. They require a lot of trust. So the technique we're looking at, Hida, is essentially, I'm going to leave the context out of the kata because it's a little bit beyond the range of this video, but essentially Hida is a way of moving from a neutral position into a sudden strike and opening the opponent up for a groin shot. So here, boom, to the side of the neck, you're striking with the blade part of the hand, the shuto, boom, hum, and then back in zanshin. right? So there's a couple really neat little nuances in here that allow it to work into weapons perfectly. Firstly, you're striking high to open up low. That's not unusual in various forms of weapon use. Basically, it's a decoy to open up an opening in the opponent's defenses, which they usually have on their mind. They usually keep guarded, is the groin. In this particular case, it's not just a decoy, it's also a strike. It's a crippling strike. So you come in, bam, and you hit right in here, the amedo. You kick up in the groin, and you step back into zanshin. This kick isn't a snap, it's literally a lift. Alright, so it seems that my camera doesn't want to record anymore. It keeps crashing mid-video, and it's not telling me when it's doing that. So I'm doing a 20-minute video, finding out that it's not saved. Alright, so continue where we left off. Essentially, the technique we're looking at, hida. 1, 2, 3. Right? Got a lot of cool details. Cross step with the strike. Boom, so everything lines up. You're protected on most points. The only opening in your armor is right here, and of course right here. But I mean, can't attack without losing some defense. Here, boom, boom, and back into zanshin. Right? So it's hida. And of course, the opposite side. Shoo, boom, boom. That's hida. Alright? In the practice of bato, hida works the exact same way. This is kind of cool because this kata actually shows us a little bit of how, in this tradition, they handle and manipulate a sword. Alright, so here. 1, 2, 3. Just the same. Of course, this pullback can be a cut. You can even move in, what have you. It works the same nonetheless. But for the constraints of this particular kata, for the sake of keeping its form and making it identifiable as the kata that we're talking about, we're going to limit it to a movement of zanshin. Right? All the same. Same kata. Right? And, of course, left side, left and right, always left and right. Seiyu gyaku. Yeah. Hum. 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 Huh. Same technique. Sim. So that's what it looks like in the context of Bato Jutsu. Tojutsu, same stuff. Here. 1, 2, 3. Right? Daiju da. 1, 2, 3. Left side. 1, 2, 3. Right. 1, 2, 3. So, as you can see in the context of Tojutsu, where you're using just the sword, you're in a duel or on the battlefield, it's the same method. Now, the sword's easy to manipulate, so in the context of a spear, we can demonstrate it just the same, right? Here. 1, 2, 3. Right. Left side. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Just like that. Hida. Same technique. As I've been doing a lot of rope lately, rope. Give ourselves a bit of leeway here. And we're just going to tuck it in the belt. Here's a method for carrying it in the belt. I'm not going to do that right now. Takes a little bit of setup the way I do it. Alright, so just the same. You've got rope in your belt, you got it set up in a particular way where you can draw it. Some cheap little thing here. Right? Just the same as hida normally. Right? boom, and then you can hook an extra limb or anything, perhaps for a hip throw. Same technique, right? And it's just like the sword and the spear. You're drawing it, thrusting it. It's the same. Shoot, boom, boom, and you hook. Additionally, that shudo can be used to place this rope over the enemy's shoulder, and then after the kick, you can reach up and grab the rope. You've got them in a partial bind already. They're on their way down to the ground. You can apply the body ties you see in Sogo Bujutsu, right? So there's 3 examples of using 3 different tools or weapons in the context of a jiu-jitsu form. In this case, a Koppujutsu form. And there's a heck of a lot more that goes into a tradition to illustrate the idea of it being a collection of skill sets. For example, there's of course medicine, spirituality, the master's observation of sociology, how to read people. There might be other elements such as battlefield specifics, how to prepare fires, whatever. Quite often, there's a tie-in with the other skill sets of the tradition. At the very least in terminology, at the very most in the explicit approach of the particular skill set. Now, I mean, preparing fires, not going to be like, the fire works because, you know, sun goddess Amaterasu permits it. The fire works because you rub some sticks together, strike some flint, use some gunpowder, what have you. So, I mean, there's of course a certain practical limit to these things, but the very fact that it's composed into a tradition, found in their documents of transmission, and practiced in a particular way for following generations, means that there's a synergy between the different skill sets, and then we can observe it in the demonstrations of the skill sets themselves. So, so that's what makes it a Sogo Bujutsu. That's what makes it a composite martial art, a system that's integrated with itself. As we just saw now, striking becomes sword drawing, becomes spear fighting, becomes rope bondage. So it's all unified. It's all a unique system. So that's Sogo Bujutsu. I hope you found that interesting. And if there's any questions or comments, please, by all means, send them to me, send them to the email, send them to any of my social networks, Facebook or YouTube comments, of course. We've got a Facebook page, we've got a Twitter account. It's all there. It's all there. So questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, insults, fire away. Cheers.